Gotta give me a job.
Welcome back. This is our fourth part for the day of Hearing Stream 6 and our final session for today. And our next submitter we have online is Jenny Boyne. Jenny, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Awesome. Did you want to put your video on? Is that possible?
Yep. Yep. I think so. Yep.
There she is. Hi. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
Over to you.
Okay. Yes, very short and brief. We're at Tourist. Most of you were here last week, so I was there. The mapping tool that is used, we wrote in mainly because they're inaccurate. You've got the Tora coastal bush behind our house, referred to as the Waimawana wetland, and Te Aroi to the south of us is referred to as the Glenburn coastal strip. There were numerous other errors along the mislabeling of the maps. So when we used the mapping tool, no one could provide me with any person or the origins of the mapping tool. So we just want someone to check it before finalising and updating your plan, because blame was laid when we did find out. They got a response. Blame was laid with the Masterton District Council, which I think was a bit unfair. So I'm not sure what you're doing with your overlays, but when there's a pretty picture and then there's a little grid, and then when you click on that, you've got different names on it.
I was just going to say, Jenny, that it's really nice to blame Masterton as opposed to South Wairarapa.
I know.
So thank you.
Not our fault. Not our fault.
Now, my land manager at Greater Wellington, he said, "Oh no, what's happened is someone's put such and such in, and it's all dropped down." But I said, "That's not the point. Yeah, when you're actually looking for something, you can't find it." Yeah. So if someone could just check the plans before they go out to make sure those little wee grids have got the right names on them, that would be most appreciated. Thank you.
I'm sure we can we can double check all of that. I blame computer gremlins.
Yes. And it probably was some little wee coding problem, but yeah. But yeah. So that's also yeah. But, so that's all my gripe. Thank you very much, and yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have any other questions for Jenny?
No, Merry Christmas, Jenny. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, and thank you very much for taking the time to do all this stuff. It's great.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing it to our attention as well.
That's okay. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye. So that concludes.
That makes my day, actually.
Submissions for today. So we record the back.
Yep.
At the end of the hearing.
Okay.
It's a choice if you
Gonna do it. Gonna do.
Yeah. So.
June till tomorrow.
So call Hamish Wesley, and we will just run through before we finish for the day questions that we do have that have been raised today by the panel and directions that we need to be aware of. And it's probably good just to refresh our minds at the end of the day. Tomorrow we'll be straight back into submissions, and then tomorrow afternoon we have deliberations for hearing stream 4. Okay.
I can step you through one by one, that same process. So the first one's factual questions that were around how many scheduled SNAs have a covenant or other form of legal protection. And then some sub-question or related questions to that is how many Queen List 2 trust covenants are within the Wairarapa that are not scheduled SNAs. And then find how many areas for protection have a covenant or other form of legal protection. And then thirdly, has the total area of land legally protected by other instruments being Queen Elizabeth Trust covenants changed since the operative plan was made operative in 2011? And if so, what's the total land area of this increase?
Hamish, when you're providing answers to 1A and 1B, will you just be providing the numbers, or will you actually be providing a list of?
We could.
Is it?
My suspicion is the best source data will be GIS data. So we could provide a list, or a number, a list, and a map.
Yes. Okay, that would be really useful.
Yeah.
Else factual.
One and A are actually the converse of each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then number 2 is a general question that Commissioner Plummer asked in terms of any state of the environment, or sorry, this Commissioner McMahon, any state of the environment monitoring and plan effectiveness monitoring on ecosystems.
Can I ask, what does that actually mean?
Yeah.
That's too complicated for me to ask that question.
Councils have a requirement to monitor the effectiveness of the plans.
Yeah.
And that usually feeds into the review of the next plan or any plan changes, particularly if it's shown that the plan's just not working or not achieving what it should do. So they have a wider state of environment monitoring, but they also can undertake specific effectiveness monitoring of their own plan too. So one's a statutory requirement and the other's more voluntary, I think.
Probably to simplify it further, is Ms. Wheatley, where she says that there's only been 2 consents in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
That's plan effectiveness monitoring.
Yeah.
How many consents are the rules triggering? So there's some data that we can check to see available.
Sometimes I'm aware of a council that did an effectiveness monitoring of a rule that showed that in every instance the consents were being granted subject to standard conditions, and it was seen to be more effective to actually make their activity permitted and the standard standards that the rule must comply with. So that was an effectiveness monitoring scenario.
And question 3 sort of related to question 2. It's part of the plan effectiveness monitoring. What enforcement action have the councils taken in the last 10 years on ecosystems and Indigenous biodiversity matters? So again, what's part of the evidence base? What's the issues been experienced?
So there might have been only 2 consents, but it might be that there was a lot of people infringing the rules. But I'm not suggesting that there was, but that could be the other side of the coin.
Would that include seeing what regional councils done at an enforcement level in that area?
Probably not.
Possibly. We just need to be careful. There'll be a different purpose or function that the regional council is performing.
I don't know that would help us actually.
Yeah.
Because they've got quite a lot of,
Yeah.
they're setting the what plants you are and aren't and so on and so forth. So I just wonder whether they're more likely to have been doing enforcement than perhaps other councils.
Possibly, but the work required to provide that information probably wouldn't be of great benefit to the district plan.
And for example, one of the common crossovers in this area is around vegetation clearance. Someone might have done vegetation clearance and the regional council may have taken enforcement action, but it'll be for soil conservation purposes in terms of erosion of land, which is not be for biodiversity reasons, which is the district jurisdiction. We just need to make sure we're not crossing over or getting confused as to what the different reasons the enforcement action has been taken, which might relate to the same activity. In question 4, this was again just a general question. Would the SNA criteria and the NPS Indigenous Biodiversity and RPS support the scheduled SNAs and proposed plan, or would the spatial extent of the SNAs change? And then specific question, Smith Wheatley on was, does the proposed district plan give effect to clause 3.10.2 in the National Policy Statement for Biodiversity? So that's the 5 types of effects.
It came from the Department of Conservation.
On the evidence. Question 7, provide the section 32AA. Commissioner McMahon, you were going to give us thought to this, whether you actually wanted this or not. So I noted it down for you to prompt you whether you
I asked that question, I think I'd misunderstood the role of reps.
in terms of what the department was seeking.
Yes.
Would you like that further evaluation now, or would you prefer, or would you be comfortable just?
So the valuation is still important. Option 2 is still valid, I think, except that I don't think that
I don't think there's scope.
suggesting that, are they? No. What they are suggesting though is that reps be included in standard 1 or effectively excluded from rule 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the vegetation clearance thresholds that are allowed by standard 1.
Which is essentially option 3, isn't it? Of like, yeah.
That's my way of describing what the department is seeking.
So there's probably only 2 options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for your indulgence.
And then to double check if there's scope.
For these 2 options, yes. Well, it's just option 2, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I checked.
Fluid.
Now, this question 8 is the conferencing one, so it might need a bit of finessing, which I can help the panel draft a minute if that would help.
Would
make sure the wording was correct. This is just the first getting it down. So what's the most appropriate policy for ecosystem P4 to recognise the exemptions for renewable electricity generation activities and electricity transmission activities in the National Policy Statement on Indigenous Biodiversity? And then it's noted that Regional Policy Statement Change 1 includes a new policy, 24D, and the hearing panels to direct expert conferencing between the reporting officers and experts for submitters. I've just named the submitters that have come up during the day, but we'll need to just check, are there any other submitters which have experts on this topic to include them?
What's going to happen? That's a lot of submitters. What happens if you still can't get some form of agreement?
It's the risk.
Yeah, the process is that there'll be a joint witness statement which will indicate the areas of agreement and disagreement. Question then is where there is disagreement, where we allow the parties to explain why they disagree, or whether it's clear from the original briefs of evidence.
I'm struggling to see how you're going to get a good consensus with that many people there.
Well, we might be surprised.
That would be very handy.
It's a good technique because it at least does potentially narrow their issue down further, even though there might be full agreement. So one party might agree on one aspect but disagree on another. It's a chance for them to record their position will be helpful during deliberations.
Be really helpful in deliberations.
Then
I think the key point there is about experts and not being advocates. So somebody would have to have given expert evidence.
Christine helpfully sent me an email while we were talking previously about the parties who would be involved based on my 42A report, which includes DOC, Rangatane, Nahi, Kahukurawhitia, Federated Farmers, Genesis, Transpower, Forest and Bird, Fish and Game, Māori Trustee and Greater Wellington.
Well, those parties haven't given, 3 of those parties have not given evidence.
Yeah.
Either lay or expert.
So it's only with people who have given.
Well, I think out of fairness, I've had every opportunity.
True. Yeah.
So it won't be too much bigger than that list we just looked at.
Yes.
That's a question. I'm not sure where it fits, but I wrote it down here when you gave me the answer about the correspondence with the Drusianics about their property. And I just wrote down here forestry rules, and there's been some announcements recently about the rules around forestry planting that have just been announced, and whether or not they need to be included somewhere in our district plan about what is and is not permissible.
I haven't looked at that specifically. Hamish, do you know?
I don't know where it would fit in, but they were just announced this month, I think. Was it this month?
Yep.
Yeah,
A couple of weeks.
a couple of weeks ago.
Just heads up, So my computer's getting off the internet.
I love that.
I know.
Shame.
I'm not sure where that would fit and where we would put that in. So,
We may not necessarily be able to, because there is a national environmental standard for plantation forestry.
True.
And whether it comes.
yeah,
Any rule in yet.
well, the rules just came out from, it was announced by the minister for whatever the other day.
Same thing. Sorry, just the team's just crashed on us. So
Oh.
I both
Oh dear.
logging back in.
Internet kicked you off. It kicks Brian off all the time.
Yeah. 6 years.
I just realised that second probably on that.
Are you able to get back on? Yeah.
Enough again.
Was that the last
The second to last question,
question?
and most of them are on biodiversity.
No surprises there.
Question 9.
Oh yeah.
This is the requested wording amendments to Ecosystem Objective 3 and the Greater Wellington evidence within the scope of this mission. Also, what were the views of the submitters on this amended objective? Coastal environment, confirm the basis for identifying the spatial extent of the foreshore protection area. And then identify points of interest for the hearing panel to visit, particularly in the Riversdale area. After the site visit.
Friday afternoon.
So just check there's nothing further on the coastal environment. There will be things that came up in evidence that we'll respond to, but
Yeah.
to the specific ones from the panel.
Questions.
Natural features. Provide a map of the Riversdale area showing the following information. So just those three map layers.
And that was we had asked Mr. Hudson and Ms. McRae to,
Yep, to coordinate as they can agree on places of interest as well, or place of interest to visit.
It's as notified. Can we superimpose the relief of East Lee on top of that? Yeah, nice.
Any other questions for natural features and landscapes? Okay. Then natural character, what are the effectiveness and efficiency issues? Or what effectiveness or efficiency issues have arisen the 25-metre building setback from this rule in the operative plan? And I think the example was regarding pump sheds. Have there been any issues with pump sheds or the like with the current rule?
I've had a question there. What was the meaning of the ability to dump biohazard within 25 metres?
Was that you amended?
Oh, the biosecurity.
Yeah, biosecurity, yes.
So that was, I think I included, sorry, I'm just trying to think. So that was so there's two rules. One's earthworks and then one's vegetation. And Horticulture New Zealand was seeking the vegetation one be amended to include vegetation modification be permitted where it's for the purposes of under the Biosecurity Act. And I agreed and recommended that be included as permitted.
So that would be like if an orchard has to be ripped out because of
PSA or
Yes, yeah. They've provided in the evidence, I think it was Emily, she's provided some good context to why that would be. And then I think they'll be heard.
Just to clarify, you're recommending to add a exemption in for if clearance is needed for biosecurity reasons.
Yep, so in my 42A, I recommended the the rule be changed, and then in between that and looking at Ms. Levinson's evidence, and then I kind of changed my mind and I updated that. So what I touched on in the summary statement here. So I think that changing the rule wouldn't make sense without changing the policy, because the policy was directing what should be permitted. Change what's permitted under the Biosecurity Act is reflected in the policy. So that was
consistent now between.
Yeah, so it should be consistent between rule and policy. Otherwise, it would have been inconsistent. Yeah.
Just make one note on that natural character point 1. I'm not entirely sure that we're going to be able to capture all that data, because when you look at the operative district plan definition of building, it excludes one structure per site less than 2 metres in height with less than a 6 square metre gross floor area. So the old pump shed and things like that wouldn't need a consent because it's excluded from the definition of a building. So it wouldn't require a building consent, and it probably wouldn't trigger a resource consent. So I'm not entirely sure that some of those small, similar sized structures we're going to get an accurate stock take.
Yeah.
That might be the answer to the question.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, actually that's
exclusion that applies, and
that answers it.
Because that was the old Building Act definition, wasn't it? And now the National Planning Standards has a different definition of building structure.
Yeah.
It's probably more the flood control gates and
They're excluded as well from that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But you may want to include earthworks, because I just know as a
Yes.
probably we've done more consents for earthworks than 25 metres of a significant water body.
Okay. Yeah.
So you may just want to broaden that.
Does the natural character rules actually have rules relating to structures? I thought it was just earthworks and vegetation. For significance.
So the rules in that chapter.
Yes.
Yes. The associated schedule then has setbacks for the zones.
And zones, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we just take out the for example.
yeah, that might.
Yeah, so the way that the rule's written is the earthworks is for a certain purpose that makes it permitted. There's no thresholds.
the building could include a structure that can lift a pump suction in and out anyway, couldn't it? Or building / structure, should it be? I know there is some down on this, down South Wairarapa, like that, right on the side of the river.
There's some big ones down there, right?
Pardon?
There's some fairly big structures
Yeah, there is.
down there, eh?
Yeah.
Okay,
Built some of them.
And
last one.
question is, this is in response to
Is for the purpose.
Brown this afternoon. Is check the completeness and accuracy of the mapping of water bodies and surface water bodies in the proposed plan, particularly within the Marsden urban area.
Yes.
Have I missed anything? There's been other matters that have arisen, which I know Erica and Matthew will respond to in evidence in their reply, in addition to these questions. But these were the ones that, as a panel, you specifically commented on or questioned today.
That's everything, Robin.
Matthew, we don't have anything on public access. I think we need to make something up.
It just must be perfect.
We might add something tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't think of any others since that we haven't covered off.
Mm.
Thank you, Hamish. So we will close with our karakia whakamutanga to end our day. Kia whakaria titapu, kia ramatia ai tiara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai. Thank you, everybody, and see you tomorrow morning.
Thank you.